In this video, we're diving into the wild world of global prisons, comparing the harshest, most punishing systems to the more relaxed, rehabilitative ones. Beware, this video contains parts some may find shocking. Norway's prison system isn't about punishing criminals. It's about helping them turn their lives around. The focus is on rehabilitation, with the goal of reintegrating inmates into society successfully after they're released. This approach has led to one of the lowest reoffending rates in the world, around just 20%. One example is Halden Prison, often called one of the most humane prisons in the world. Inmates here live in individual cells that resemble modern apartments, complete with windows, comfortable furniture, and private bathrooms. There's also a fully equipped music studio, a kitchen, and even a library. But Halden is just one example. Across Norwegian prisons, inmates have access to a wide range of educational programs, from high school to university courses. There are also vocational training opportunities like carpentry, construction, and work programs to make and sell goods. This gives them real-world skills and work experience that make reintegration into society easier after release. Norway also takes mental health seriously. Inmates struggling with addiction or other mental health issues have access to therapy and counseling, helping them heal and rebuild their lives. Many Norwegian prisons have designated family units where prisoners can spend quality time with their loved ones. Some even host family weekends to strengthen these relationships. Inmates in Norway retain many of the same rights as free citizens, including the right to vote and the ability to maintain privacy. They can communicate with their families regularly, and some prisons even have no walls or bars, like Bastøy Prison, located on an island in the Oslo Fjord. Here, prisoners live in cottages, work on farms, and engage in rehabilitation programs, all without the traditional confinement of bars. Norwegian prisons operate on the principle that inmates are still human beings who deserve respect, which is reflected in everything from the design of the prisons to the way staff interact with prisoners. In fact, prison staff are trained to be more like mentors than guards. They work closely with inmates, offering guidance and support, helping them on their path to rehabilitation. The system even includes a unique prison within a prison concept for those considered the most dangerous or difficult to rehabilitate. These inmates are kept in more secure facilities, but they still receive the same rehabilitative support, focusing on humane treatment even for those who are at the highest risk of reoffending. Perhaps the most surprising part of the Norwegian system is the way it handles life sentences. While Norway technically has life sentences, in practice, no one serves life without the possibility of parole. Even those convicted of the most severe crimes are given a chance for parole after just 21 years, as long as they show genuine signs of rehabilitation. All of this comes together to form a prison system that's built not on punishment, but on healing, education, and second chances. The goal isn't to lock people away, it's to help them rejoin society as productive, rehabilitated citizens. And with a reoffending rate of around just 20%, it's clear they're doing something right. Moving on to Japan, we find a system built not around rehabilitation, but discipline and order. Inmates follow a rigid daily routine, which includes physical exercise, manual labor, and time for self-reflection. The focus is on maintaining order and conformity, with little room for personal expression. Morning calisthenics and other exercises help maintain both physical health and discipline. Inmates also participate in labor, often working for about 8 hours a day on manual tasks or in-house manufacturing projects. Though they aren't paid, the work is seen as part of their rehabilitation process, teaching them responsibility and discipline. Life in Japanese prisons is quiet and controlled, with inmates living in small, cramped cells. Privacy is practically non-existent. Prisoners sleep on mats and are monitored closely, even during the night. The prison environment suppresses loud or disruptive behavior, with any outbursts immediately punished. Respect for authority is a central tenet of Japanese prison life, and is maintained through the strict rules and constant surveillance of inmates. There's a strong hierarchical system among prisoners. New arrivals must follow the rules set by more senior inmates, and the hierarchy is based on length of time served. Inmates are also responsible for maintaining cleanliness in their cells and shared spaces, further fostering personal responsibility. Parole is difficult to obtain, granted only to those who show clear signs of rehabilitation and are deemed no longer a danger to society. Foreign prisoners often face even more challenges, struggling with language barriers and cultural differences, which can lead to harsher treatment for minor infractions. Contact with the outside world is highly restricted. Inmates have limited visits, often supervised, and letters are censored. Phone calls are rare, and there's minimal communication with family. Entertainment options are also sparse. While prisoners may have access to books, these are often limited to educational or religious materials. Recreation time is brief and focused mainly on physical exercise rather than leisure. Japan does offer some rehabilitation programs, including educational courses, vocational training, and counseling services for mental health or addiction issues. However, these programs are often competitive and access can be limited. While Japan's system emphasizes reform and personal responsibility, it does so within an environment of strict order and discipline, with inmates facing long sentences and a harsh parole system. With lower levels of inmate violence compared to other countries, Japan's focus on control and hierarchy has created a prison culture that is both rigorous and deeply rooted in respect for authority. Despite their strict rules and tough parole, Japan's reoffending rates remain shockingly high at around 50%. India's prison system is once again something completely different, facing immense challenges uncommon in countries like Japan and Norway. Many facilities hold 2 to 3 times their intended capacity, forcing inmates into cramped, unsanitary conditions. Basic amenities like clean water, adequate food, and medical care are often lacking, which contributes to widespread malnutrition and the spread of diseases. A significant portion of the prison population consists of under-trials, individuals awaiting trial, sometimes for years, due to a sluggish judicial process. This makes up nearly 70% of all prisoners. Living conditions are tough, with inadequate sanitation, overcrowded cells, and limited resources. Solitary confinement is commonly used as punishment, despite its severe psychological effects, and harsh disciplinary measures, including physical abuse, are often reported. Corruption further complicates matters, as bribes and favoritism often dictate treatment within the system. Women in prison face additional hardships, such as limited access to healthcare, sanitation, and protection from exploitation. Prison work programs are widespread, but compensation is minimal or non-existent. Inmates often perform manual labor, producing textiles, handicrafts, or agricultural goods. While some prisons offer vocational training and education, these programs are sparse and fail to meet the needs of most prisoners, leaving rehabilitation efforts underdeveloped. Mental health support is virtually non-existent, despite high rates of depression and anxiety among inmates. Overworked and understaffed facilities struggle to maintain order, leading to inadequate oversight and occasional violence. Rural prisons are especially under-resourced, isolating inmates further from legal aid and family connections. Despite these issues, religious and cultural practices are allowed in many prisons, providing some semblance of community and identity. Despite these small benefits, the Indian prison system remains one of Asia's most infamous. Russian prisons are infamous for their harsh conditions and strict regimes, which prioritize punishment over rehabilitation. Overcrowding is a major issue, with cells often crammed beyond capacity, leading to poor hygiene, limited access to healthcare, and frequent outbreaks of disease. Tuberculosis has historically been a major issue in Russian prisons, with drug-resistant strains becoming increasingly common in the 21st century. Tens of thousands of prisoners are reportedly infected each year, who in turn spread the disease outside the prison upon release. Prisoners are subjected to grueling daily routines, which include mandatory labor in prison industries, often without fair compensation. Tasks range from manufacturing goods to sewing uniforms, all under tightly controlled conditions. Life inside Russian prisons is rigidly disciplined. Inmates are expected to follow strict rules, with any disobedience met by harsh punishments, including extended solitary confinement or physical abuse. Personal freedom is virtually non-existent, as prisoners are closely monitored by guards and surveillance systems. Communication with the outside world is heavily restricted, with limited family visits and censored correspondence. The environment fosters a culture of survival, where inmates must navigate unrelenting power dynamics and often violent hierarchies. Rehabilitation programs in Russia are minimal, and the focus remains on maintaining order rather than reforming behavior. Mental health support is almost entirely absent, leaving prisoners with no recourse for dealing with psychological issues or trauma. At the extreme end of the spectrum lies Black Dolphin, one of Russia's most notorious prisons. Located near the border with Kazakhstan, this maximum security facility houses the country's most dangerous criminals, including serial killers and terrorists. Black Dolphin is designed to completely break its inmates. Prisoners are kept in nearly constant isolation, with no contact allowed between inmates. They are blindfolded and handcuffed whenever moved, and must walk bent over at the waist, unable to see their surroundings. Cells are small and barren, containing only basic necessities, and inmates are under 24/7 surveillance. While Russian prisons as a whole are tough, Black Dolphin stands out as a symbol of punitive excess, where survival itself is the ultimate challenge. Now, let's take a look at Thailand, where overcrowding remains a major issue in the prison system. Many prisons are operating well beyond their capacity, often holding 2 to 3 times the number of inmates they were designed to accommodate. This leads to cramped, uncomfortable living conditions, conditions, where inmates are forced to sleep on the floor and lack access to proper sanitation or basic necessities. As a result, tension between prisoners is high, and the overall atmosphere is tense and volatile. Medical care is also a significant concern in Thai prisons. Healthcare services are minimal, with many prisoners reporting long waits for treatment, and some health conditions, such as jaundice, remain untreated, leading to preventable suffering. In addition to overcrowding and poor healthcare, shackling remains a troubling practice in Thai prisons, particularly among death row inmates. While Thai law prohibits the routine use of shackles, reports of this practice persist, often in violation of international human rights standards. The prison system is also severely underfunded, contributing to a lack of proper staff, poor infrastructure, and insufficient resources to maintain basic services. Corruption within the system adds to these issues, with prison staff reportedly accepting bribes, further hindering reforms. The United Nations has voiced concerns over the ill treatment of prisoners, overcrowding, and torture within the system, urging the Thai government to make significant improvements. Despite calls for reform, progress has been slow, leaving the situation largely unchanged for many prisoners. Overall, Thailand's prison system remains deeply troubled, with overcrowding, inadequate medical care, underfunding, and human rights abuses continuing to plague the system. So how do all of these systems compare to the infamous American prison system? The United States boasts one of the largest and most complex prison systems in the world, housing over 1.2 million inmates in federal and state prisons. It also has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, with over 531 people per 100,000 incarcerated. This stems from tough sentencing policies, the war on drugs, and a general focus on punishment over rehabilitation. U.S. prisons are plagued by overcrowding, with many facilities operating at or beyond capacity. This exacerbates violence, which often includes physical altercations and sexual assault among inmates. Efforts like the Prison Rape Elimination Act have tried to address this, but the problem persists. Living conditions in U.S. prisons are harsh, with cramped cells, poor ventilation, and inadequate sanitation. In southern states, the lack of air conditioning leads to unbearable heat in summer, resulting in health risks and even lawsuits. Healthcare is another major challenge, with understaffed facilities and long wait times. Chronic illnesses, addiction, and mental health disorders often go untreated, leaving prisoners vulnerable. Rehabilitation programs exist in some facilities, offering education or vocational training, but these opportunities are limited, and many prisons focus primarily on punishment. Oversight of U.S. prisons is minimal, allowing abuses like excessive use of solitary confinement and guard misconduct to go unchecked. Additionally, the quality of food and access to recreation are often subpar, further contributing to the dehumanizing environment. The system's flaws starkly contrast with Norway's rehabilitative model, or even Japan's rigid discipline. Unlike India's overcrowded prisons where pretrial detention dominates, U.S. facilities face mass incarceration, driven by systemic policies. Though efforts for reform and decarceration are underway, the sheer scale and deeply ingrained issues of the American prison system make meaningful change slow and difficult. Reoffending rates change dramatically based on location, but approximately 44% of released prisoners are arrested within their first year. And that's a wrap on our look at some of the world's most notorious prison systems. From Norway's rehabilitative approach to Russia's brutal Black Dolphin, every country has its own way of handling crime and punishment. What's clear is that many prison systems need serious reform. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. See you next time.